On October 20th, 2016, Nintendo gave us a first look at their brand new console, the Nintendo Switch. This first look trailer showed off a bunch of games that would be releasing on the system. We saw the new upcoming 3D Zelda game, a port of Mario Kart 8, and even Skyrim running on the system. But out of all the games we saw in this trailer, there was one that caught almost everyone's eye. One game that looked to be returned to form for one of gaming's most iconic franchises. And one that would be remembered for years to come. That game is none other than Super Mario Odyssey. And although we didn't know it when we initially saw this clip back in 2016, before the game even had a name, Super Mario Odyssey would eventually go on to be one of the best Mario games ever made. And in this video, I want to truly see what made it such a masterpiece. My name is Mariomikester, and welcome to a Super Mario Odyssey retrospective. Released worldwide on October 27, 2017, Super Mario Odyssey is the 6th mainline 3D Mario game. Development for this game began all the way back in late 2013, shortly after the release of Super Mario 3D World. One of, if not the biggest focus the team had during the development of this game, was to appeal to Mario's core audience, rather than appealing to the wider, more casual audience they had been appealing to since Super Mario Galaxy's release back in 2007. To appeal to Mario's core audience, the game was designed around returning to the open-ended sandbox level design of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, instead of the much more linear design seen in all the other 3D Marios at the time. And in order to best captivate this core audience and make the gameplay feel as much like a return to the roots of 3D Mario as possible, many prominent developers and staff who worked on 64 and Sunshine were brought on board to work on Odyssey. But the team didn't want to entirely rely on the roots of 3D Mario. They also wanted to introduce tons of new mechanics and ideas that would keep the gameplay feeling fresh. One of the many new mechanics they messed around with in the early stages of the game's development was the capture mechanic. And after working on and refining it for a few days, they realized just how much potential it had, and eventually decided to focus the entire game around it. And as the game wrapped up its decently long development period of around 4 years, Super Mario Odyssey was properly revealed to the public, title and all, on January 13th, 2017. Super Mario Odyssey opens up with a classic confrontation between Mario and Bowser aboard Bowser's airship, where Mario seems to have caught Bowser before he was able to escape whilst trying to kidnap Peach, and the two are duking it out. However, unlike most confrontations between the two, Bowser actually wins here by catching Mario off guard with his boomerang hat and sends him flying off into the air, with only his hat remaining on the ship before it's promptly disposed of by Bowser and shredded to pieces. This opening does an amazing job at setting up the fact that Bowser's going to be an actual threat this time around, unlike whatever he had going on in 3D World. I love that when he's speaking, although a lot of it is just growling gibberish, you can actually make out when he names both Mario and Peach. After the game's opening cutscene though, rather than Mario waking and starting off in a happy and upbeat grassy plain like we've seen over and over in the Mario series, he instead wakes up in this gloomy, monochromatic place known as Bonneton, where he's greeted by Cappy, your companion and partner for the game. Bonneton is a great area to start the game in. Not only is its gloomy and dark atmosphere such a well-needed change of pace from what we're used to in opening levels from Mario games, the dark and desolate nature of the kingdom is actually intended to reflect the feelings of Mario and the player as they begin their adventure. I mean, Mario is just defeated and has no idea where he is, so it makes sense for the emotion conveyed by this kingdom to be sadness, with the fog surrounding Bonneton representing his confusion. And after coming to grips with the basics of the controls and teaming up with Cappy, here in Bonneton, you're also introduced to the capture mechanic, with the game having you capture a frog in order to effortlessly scale the tower. I think a frog being the first capture of this game is honestly a pretty smart move. Not only is it an incredibly simple, but incredibly useful capture, just requiring you to jump to use its ability, it also showcases that you can capture almost anything in this game, not just average Mario enemies. This game is amazing. The climax of this tutorial kingdom is your introduction to the Brutals, goons who Bowser has hired to plan his wedding and take care of Mario. And although your fight with the first Brutal here, Topper, is relatively simple, I really do appreciate Nintendo designing completely new side villains here instead of reusing Boom Boom or Bowser Jr. It's just one of the many things that makes Odyssey feel distinct. And I mean, speaking of Odyssey's distinctiveness, I can't forget about its incredible assortment of kingdoms. Super Mario Odyssey is meant to be an adventure. It's a globetrotting journey across the world, hence the title of Odyssey, so its kingdoms should represent that, and each one should be diverse and different from each other in order to truly make it feel like you're traveling the world. And the game absolutely delivers on this with its kingdoms. While at first, a lot of the locations in the game may seem like formulaic rehashes of basic Mario level themes, like Cascade and Sand Kingdom seeming to be just your average grass and desert levels, the kingdoms that stick to these formulaic themes all have something unique about them that set them apart from locations that have used these themes before. Cascade Kingdom has a prehistoric theme, even featuring a literal T-Rex and the fossil of a giant Triceratops. The Lake Kingdom has this Atlantis-inspired theme, with its Greek architecture and underwater city. And the Seaside Kingdom is a French-inspired beach resort, complete with a volleyball minigame. And the kingdoms that aren't based off classic Mario themes and are in fact brand new, well, those kingdoms are just amazing. Of course you have the big one, the one Nintendo promoted tirelessly up until this game's launch, that they even created a live-action music video for, the Metro Kingdom, which I'll talk a lot more about later. But you also have Bowser's Kingdom, a beautiful traditional Japanese-inspired take on the Koopa's castle. The Luncheon Kingdom, which combines a volcano theme with a food theme to create this colorful and weirdly upbeat location inhabited by living forks. And finally, Crumble Den, aka the Ruin Kingdom, which is like this Dark Souls-esque location that features this incredibly cool boss fight against a giant dragon referred to as the Lord of Lightning, that I desperately wish got fully realized into an entire kingdom due to how original and cool its design is. But Odyssey's kingdoms aren't just fun to look at due to their unique theming. They are also an absolute blast to explore thanks to this game's legendary movement. Super Mario Odyssey without a doubt has the best movement of any 3D Mario game. There is no competition. It has basic movement options like the long jump, double and triple jump, and of course the wall jump that are more than enough for inexperienced players to make their way through the game. But for those more experienced players who want to go a bit further with the game's movement and master it, there are a ton of other moves that when used in conjunction with each other, offer so many fun ways to overcome obstacles and move around quickly. For example, inside the Sand Kingdom's inverted pyramid, as soon as you enter, you're met with a large gap, and a bullet bill launcher that's shooting bullet bills at you. Now, in order to cross this gap, you could just capture a bullet and make your way across with ease, or you could say no, I don't need the bullet, and instead make your way across with clever and relatively precise usage of the movement that is just so much more fun, fast, and satisfying. It really feels like a lot of Odyssey was designed with this two solutions to the puzzle idea in mind. You have the intended path that most people will take, and whether that be through capturing a conveniently placed enemy or following the direction the game is pointing you in. And then you have the less intended path that usually requires a decent understanding of the movement in order to pull off. I absolutely love this idea. On my first playthrough of the game, I didn't really understand Mario's movement all that well, so I usually stuck to the intended path. But on every subsequent replay I do of this game, I'm always finding new and unique ways to tackle challenges because of how well-rounded I've become with Mario's movement and physics. And the game doesn't just reward your understanding of the movement with quicker paths. It also rewards you for going out of your way to reach certain areas that may seem inaccessible at first. One of the best examples of this can be found in the giant room under Toast Arena, where the binding band used to be held. Here, there are pillars surrounding you, that at first just seem like simple set pieces to decorate the room. But if you try to reach these pillars by making clever use of Cappy, you'll actually be rewarded by sets of invisible coins scattered about on each of the pillars. This in and of itself is already cool, but What's more is if you take it a step further and make your way onto this small sliver of rock outlining the door, and perform a well-timed cap jump to make your way on top of the doorway, you'll actually be rewarded with a giant stack of 200 coins just because you were curious enough to try to get up there. And in Bowser's Kingdom, right below the area where Bowser takes off in his airship with Peach, there's a giant Bowser head that's similar to the pillars in Toast Arena, just seems like a decoration at first, but is actually somewhere you can get to by literally jumping down from above and angling yourself so you don't fall off. Here, you're not rewarded with coins, but rather a power moon, meaning that not only was this area somewhere they knew you could go, but somewhere they expected you to go. And by making light of the sheer amount of movement possibilities you have in this game, and just how much effort was put into it, it may seem like Mario's movement is the forefront of this game, its main draw. But it's actually not, and that's the beauty of it. The main draw of Odyssey, and its main focus, is the captures, having the ability to be almost anything. So the fact that Nintendo put this much effort into Mario's movement, and the fact that it controls so well, is just a testament to how polished Odyssey is, and how much love was put into it. This game truly encapsulates the beauty of the original sandbox 3D Mario's 64 and Sunshine by offering open levels and stellar movement, but also expands upon them with so many new ideas. One of the many new ideas Odyssey introduces is the purple coins. Now, the concept of actual purple colored coins in Mario games isn't new. We already saw them in Super Mario Galaxy, but their usage and purpose here is completely new and different. In Odyssey, the purple coins are an actual currency you use, separate from the regular coins you collect, that can be used to buy souvenirs and costumes from a clothing franchise called Crazy Cap, but can only be used in the specific kingdom you collected them in. The main gimmick with the purple coins is that there's only a set amount of them in each major kingdom, with the goal being to find them all and be able to buy everything in each kingdom's purple coin shop. Now, in concept, I think the purple coins are an amazing idea. It's just another way Odyssey incentivizes exploration of its open sandbox levels. But in execution, this idea isn't without its problems. A lot of the time when you're trying to collect an entire set of a kingdom's purple coins, you'll always be stuck on one or two pairs you can't seem to find, despite you searching up and down every area tirelessly, only to finally cave in and look up a tutorial online to find that they were hidden in the stupidest place possible. Like, just look at this set of purple coins in the Snow Kingdom. You literally have to jump into a hole in the ground that seemingly would kill you, but instead has a place you can land in to collect the coins. Holes in the ground usually mean death. This was a concept that has been literally burned into Mario players' heads since World 1-1 in Super Mario Bros. So why they decided to hide a pair of purple coins here is beyond me. Now, I don't think the solution to the purple coins' issues is to remove them outright. They are a really good idea, just plagued with some awful spots that they're hidden in that can turn a lot of players off from wanting to find them. The real way to fix purple coins is obvious. Either don't hide them in absurd spots, or allow the player to buy hints/arrows that point them in the right direction without fully giving out their location. Overall, I really like the purple coins. They are a genuinely cool new idea. I just wish they weren't annoying to collect at times. But my absolute favorite new idea introduced in Odyssey is very unsurprisingly the capture mechanic. It's hard, for me at least, to fully appreciate the capture mechanic as much as I did when the game first came out, just because of how used to it I am, because of how much I've played Odyssey now. But on my first playthrough of the game, I remember having an absolute blast just throwing my hat at anything that looked capturable and seeing what new powers they gave me. I mean, the fact that you can capture literally almost anything, yes, I mean anything, is just such a genius idea that allows for limitless possibilities. And while some of the captures in the game, like the meat or the boulder, may seem underwhelming and are more there as sort of a joke capture to make you laugh a bit, the ones with actual effort put into them, which is like 90% of them, are done remarkably well. And it's not like the game overuses certain captures and is rarely introducing new ones. It's always moving on to the next thing before you can even fully understand the last one's abilities. And despite there being over 50 things to capture in the game, Odyssey feels like it barely scratches the surface of this mechanic's potential. These captures aren't just one-off things to solve a puzzle that become useless right after either. They open so many possibilities within levels, so many different ways to traverse around, and are, for the most part, so unique from one another. The fact that within the first hour of this game, you can be a frog, an electrical wire, a chain chomp, a T-Rex, a pair of binoculars, a bullet bill, a Goomba, and a cactus, just shows the beauty of this mechanic and how many ideas it throws at you in such a short period of time. Even if we don't ever get an Odyssey 2, I really hope this mechanic returns in some shape or form. Nintendo could do so much with it. And all of this, the movement, the purple coins, the capture mechanic, the creativity, it all culminates together in the absolute pinnacle of Super Mario Odyssey, New Donk City. New Donk City is one of my favorite locations in any Mario game. There is so much to do here. You have its main mission, which first involves visiting the location during a thunderstorm, and scaling the city hall to defeat the giant Mecha Wiggler who's been sucking the power from the city. Then you're recruiting band members for Pauline's festival, investigating the sewers of New Donk City, and finally, taking place in the festival, which is still one of the coolest moments in any Mario game. But you also have everything outside of the main mission. I mean, you have an entire city to explore here. You can jump off cars, swing off streetlights, race an RC car, jump rope, and even play through a remake of Super Mario Bros. 1-1 in the theater. I can see why Nintendo was tirelessly promoting this up until the game's launch. There is just so much content, so many ideas crammed into this one level. And the little things, like sitting down next to this guy on a bench and getting a moon for it as he appreciates your company, or the various Donkey Kong references spread all over due to the city's connection with Donkey Kong and Pauline, just fills the place with life, and really makes it capture the essence and craziness of the city it's inspired by, New York City. New Donk City isn't the pinnacle of Super Mario Odyssey just because of what it introduces. It's the pinnacle of Super Mario Odyssey because of how it takes advantage of everything the game has shown you thus far and combines it all together in this beautiful amalgamation of creativity and love. I will never not love opening the game just to jump around here. It truly is a masterpiece of a kingdom. Despite the overwhelming amount of praise Odyssey got and still receives today, there is one critique almost everyone has about this game, and that's the moon system. One of the biggest things Odyssey did to streamline its open-ended sandbox gameplay was remove the boot-out system that plagued 64 and Sunshine, and instead allowed players to just keep adventuring after they had found a moon, with the obvious exception of multi-moons. This was obviously a great change, one of the best to the Mario sandbox formula. But with moons not kicking you out of a level, Nintendo was able to place way more around than they would in the old games. Instead of a level having 7 or 8 stars or shines to collect, now stages had between 40 to almost 90 moons in them. Some of these moons are in well-crafted sub-areas or just good hiding places, while others are just kinda there. A lot of people believe the reason for these out-in-the-open moons existing in the first place was because Nintendo wanted you to just be able to pick up the game and play for 5 minutes and be able to collect a moon, since the Switch is portable and all. And while these out-in-the-open moons have never really bothered me, I can absolutely see why people are annoyed at how lazy it feels like some of the game's moons were placed. I think there is a lot of good to come out of Odyssey's moon system though. I mean, outside of the exploration it encourages, you also have the sub-areas. The sub-areas, especially in the post-game, is one of the most underrated aspects of Super Mario Odyssey. The game has tons of them spread all throughout each kingdom, with every one containing a fun challenge that takes advantage of one of the game's mechanics. And whether that be a capture, Mario's movement, or sheep, they are, for the most part, a ton of fun and really creative at times. Outside of the main moon each sub-area has, there is also a secret second moon that is usually found by completing a harder challenge or searching around the place. I've always enjoyed the sub-areas in this game. They're what I look forward to whenever I get to the post-game, just because of how creative a lot of them get. Finally though, before I talk about Bowser, there's one last thing I want to mention, and that's the costumes. I remember when Nintendo first revealed costumes for this game, my and a lot of others' reactions to the news was just, oh, okay, that's pretty cool, but I'm probably just gonna stick to Mario's regular outfit. But when the game came out, I couldn't stop wearing different costumes due to how silly or cool a lot of them were. There's just some novelty to dressing Mario up in a cowboy hat, or clown suit, or football outfit, or nothing, and just running around and playing the game that way. Each major kingdom also has a purple coin outfit that dresses Mario in the appropriate clothing so he fits in wherever he's exploring. One of my favorite things about Odyssey's costumes, though, is the references a lot of them hold, and just how deep some of these references go. For example, in New Donk City, you can buy the Builder outfit, which is an obvious reference to Mario's appearance in Super Mario Maker. However, in the Wooded Kingdom, you can buy the Scientist outfit, which at first looks like a completely new look for Mario, but is actually a deep-cut reference to Mario's appearance in a 1994 Japanese commercial for the Super Game Boy accessory. I still to this day think this is one of the coolest things. Not only does Odyssey allow you to dress Mario up and have him run around in absurd outfits, the outfits themselves are callbacks to Mario's past that really make this game feel like a celebration of Mario. More on that later though. For now, let's talk about Bowser. In Super Mario Galaxy, Bowser was the most threatening he had ever been. I absolutely loved it. The way he crashed the Star Festival, ripped Peach's castle up from the ground, lifted it into space, and how menacing he felt whenever you interacted with him, just made Bowser feel like a real villain that you had actual motivation to defeat, and not a dad who was trying to have a pool party with his son. In the next game, Super Mario Galaxy 2, Bowser retained some of the things that made him feel threatening in Galaxy 1, but just didn't have the same vibe. Largely due to how much Galaxy 2 sacrificed its story and atmosphere for better gameplay. And then in 3D World, Bowser just felt goofy. I mean, yeah, it obviously fit in and worked for 3D World, but Bowser has always been at his best when he's felt like an actual threat. It's what makes finally defeating him feel so satisfying. And when I say Odyssey delivers on making Bowser feel like a threat, I mean it delivers. Your first confrontation with Bowser after he sent you flying into the air and shredded your hat into pieces takes place in the Cloud Kingdom when you catch up with his airship. Here you battle atop the clouds, dodging the attacks he sends your way, and literally beating him up with the hat he defeated you with at the beginning of the game. If you're playing with Joy-Cons, you have the option to physically punch with them in order to deal damage to Bowser, which I've always thought was a cool little addition. After you defeat Bowser here and send him flying away, only for him to land back on his ship, he commands his cannons to fire at you. And while Mario is able to narrowly avoid a lot of them, before he's able to take off in the Odyssey, it gets hit, and is destroyed by Bowser, sending Mario and Cappy plummeting down to the Lost Kingdom where you have to repair it. Your next confrontation with Bowser takes place a lot later in the game, when you're on your way to Bowser's Kingdom. Here, Bowser stops you while atop this giant dragon, and orders it to shoot a huge blast of purple electricity at you, in order to presumably kill Mario considering his dialogue here, and once again destroys the Odyssey, with you having to defeat that giant dragon in a boss fight in order to move on. Your final confrontation with Bowser takes place after you defeat the Mecha Brutal and fly to the moon with the Odyssey, where Bowser is planning to marry Peach. I absolutely love the quiet ambience of the moon that plays once you arrive there, and the wedding bells that chime to indicate you need to hurry up and get there to crash the wedding before Bowser is able to force Peach into marrying him. After you finally make your way up to the wedding hall, you're able to burst in and stop Bowser, only to fall right into his trap. This final fight is just like the one in Cloud Kingdom. However, this time the stakes are higher, Bowser is much angrier, and overall, the fight is a lot more difficult. You have to dodge his fire breath, the spiky balls he throws at you, and the fake hats. The music here is just phenomenal. It's one of my favorite Bowser themes ever. It captures the mood and atmosphere so well. And once you're finally able to push through and start punching him one last time, seeing him slam into the wall and finally be defeated is so satisfying. But it's not over yet. As a final demonstration of just how imaginative and creative the Odyssey team got when developing this game, the final sequence has you capture and play as Bowser. In this final sequence, you use Bowser's raw strength to fight your way out of the collapsing insides of the moon. You can effortlessly break walls, shoot fireballs, and jump high up in the air as the character you've gone up against for years. There's this incredibly cool 2D section that you have to go through as well, that stylizes Bowser and Peach in their original 8-bit sprites. And of course, you have the final area. The area with an entire lyrical song attached to it. This final sequence is just so cool. It makes me wish Galaxy got something like this. Shooting fireballs to destroy the pillars, and clawing at that final rock to reveal the spark pylon you need to escape, just feels absolutely marvelous every time you do it. But, like with most Mario games, the credits rolling doesn't exactly mean your adventure is over. And in Odyssey's case, it's just the beginning. Remember when I said this game feels like a celebration of Mario? Well, there's no other place in Odyssey that feels more like a celebration of Mario and his legacy than the kingdom you unlock right after you beat the game. Welcome to the Mushroom Kingdom. This entire kingdom is filled with Mario series references. And whether it be the desert far off in the distance, referencing how close a desert is to the Mushroom Kingdom because it's usually the second world in 2D Mario games, or the Tanuki Tail tree that sits close to the castle that is an obvious callback to the exact same tree from Super Mario 3D Land, they all really bring this place to life. But there is no other Mario game that is referenced more here than the one that brought Mario to 3D in the first place, Super Mario 64. With the amount of callbacks to 64 here, the entire kingdom just feels like a beautiful love letter to that game. You got Yoshi on the castle, the jingle that plays when you drain the castle moat, jumping into paintings to rematch the bosses and hearing that iconic, the moons being retextured to stars with the classic theme playing, and of course, the entire courtyard from that game being accessible by wearing the Mario 64 outfit. It's all so cool. But the callback that really solidified my love for this kingdom is easily one of the simplest. You see, once you enter Peach's castle, you're greeted by a floor layout that is almost identical to the floor layout of the entrance from Mario 64, with the main thing missing being the doors to the other rooms. What's not missing, though, is the sun carpet on the ground that you looked up to the roof from in order to reach the wing cap level in Mario 64. When I first reached the castle on my very first playthrough, I immediately noticed this carpet, and jokingly looked up just like I would in Mario 64, not expecting anything. But to my surprise, you are actually rewarded with a moon for this, which is just like, wow. That attention to detail is absolutely insane. The only people who would know to look up like that are people who've played Super Mario 64. So that level of acknowledgement for such a minor detail has always stuck with me. I don't care if it's just my nostalgia for Super Mario 64, I absolutely adore this kingdom. Outside of unlocking the Mushroom Kingdom though, after beating the game, you not only get more moons that repopulate every kingdom you visited, even the Cloud and Ruin kingdoms in the form of the Moon Rocks, you also unlock the ability to travel to 2 additional kingdoms, given you have enough moons. At 250 moons overall, you get to travel to the dark side of the moon, where you have one final fight with all of the Brutals. First, you have to beat them all in a row in a boss rush, where you have the disadvantage of the moon gravity and the inability to gain health. Meaning, you can die incredibly easily here and have to start from the very beginning. Secondly, and finally, you have to face off against the Mecha Brutal again, however this time in moon gravity. And while the moon gravity may seem like it makes it harder, and was probably intended to do so, it actually makes it so you can easily get on top of the Mecha Brutal and defeat it in a much less difficult, but way more fun way. At 500 moons overall though, you gain access to the darker side of the moon. Yes, I know, very original naming. Here you take on what I can only describe as this game's perfect run / Champions Road equivalent. There are multiple sections that each force you to demonstrate a particular skill or set of skills you've learned along your journey. This level is difficult overall, but gets really hard at the end, and due to its length, having to start over is incredibly frustrating. And while it's not as hard as Champions Road or the Perfect Run, mostly because of how much more control you have over Mario compared to those games, this is still a very hard challenge for even the most experienced of players. And after you're finally able to complete it, you get to scale up a replica of the New Donk City Hall, while Cappy reflects on the journey you two have had, and a music box rendition of the game's main theme plays, bringing an emotional end to an absolutely beautiful game. Super Mario Odyssey is an absolute masterpiece of an experience. Start to finish, first playthrough to 4th playthrough, and first speedrun attempt to 50th. This game took the foundation that 64 set and Sunshine built upon, and improved upon it in the best ways possible. You're not booted out of a level anymore. You have more incentive to explore than ever thanks to the abundance of moons and purple coins to collect. And level themes are better than ever. The movement is on another level, and is by far the best movement any Mario game, hell, any platformer has ever had. It's not overcomplicated at first glance, so it's easily approachable to newcomers. But when you actually take the time to dig deep and understand it, you realize all the possibilities it opens up, and just how much you can do with it despite it not being the game's central focus. The actual central focus of the game, the capture mechanic, is one of the coolest mechanics in any Nintendo game. The team understood the possibilities allowed for, and gave us so many things to capture. But at the same time, it feels like there could be so much more due to how unique the idea is. Super Mario Odyssey is a game I fell in love with when it came out. It's a game that's always surprising you, always exceeding your expectations, and always reminding you that Mario will forever be one of the greatest franchises to ever grace gaming. Super Mario Odyssey is an absolute masterpiece.
Gonna start.